Reading through the Bible in 1 year, August 29th. 1 Samuel chapters 21 through 22, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, Ezekiel chapter 1, and Psalm 37. David went to the priest Ahimelech at Nob. Ahimelech was afraid to meet David, so he said to him, "Why are you alone and no one is with you?" Well, David answered the priest Ahimelech, "The king gave me a mission, but told me, don't let anyone know about the mission I'm sending you on, or what I have ordered you to do. I have stationed my young men at a certain place. Now, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread, or whatever can be found." The priest told him, "There is no ordinary bread on hand. However, there is the consecrated bread. This is the table of showbread that's in front of the um, curtain right before the holy place. It's to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. There's the 12 loaves of bread there. But the young men may eat it only if they have kept themselves from women." David answered him, "I swear that women are being kept from us, as always when I go out to battle. The young men's bodies are consecrated even on an ordinary mission. So, of course, their bodies are consecrated today." So the priest gave him the consecrated bread, for there was no bread there except the bread of the presence, mentioned before, that had been removed from the presence of the Lord. When the bread was removed, it had been replaced with warm bread. Again, this happens every single week. On the next Sabbath, they replace the bread with the new stuff. So this is 7-day-old bread, but I mean, it's bread. When you have nothing else to eat, that's perfectly fine. One of Saul's servants, detained before the Lord, was there that day. His name was Doeg the Edomite, chief of Saul's shepherds. David said to Ahimelech, "Do you have a spear or a sword on hand?" "I didn't even bring my sword or my weapons, since the king's mission was urgent." The priest replied, "The sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah. This is here, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you want, take it for yourself. If you want to take it for yourself, take it, for there isn't anything else here." "There is none like it," David said. "Give it to me." David fled that day from Saul's presence and went to King Achish of Gath. But Achish's servant said, "Isn't this David, the king of the land? Don't they sing about him during their dances? Saul has killed his thousands, but David his 10,000s." David took this to heart and became very afraid of King Achish of Gath, so he pretended to be insane in their presence. He acted like a madman around them, scribbling on the doors of the city gate and letting saliva run down his beard. "Look, you can see the man is crazy," Achish said to his servants. "Why did you bring him to me? Do I have a shortage of crazy people that you brought this one to act crazy around me? Is this one going to come into my house?" So David left Gath and took refuge in the cave of Adullam. When David's brothers and his father's whole family heard, they went down there and joined him there. In addition, every man who was desperate, in debt, this is in debt to King Saul, or discontented, rallied around him, and he became their leader. About 400 men were with him. From there, David went to Mizpah of Moab, and there he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and mother stay with you until I know what God will do for me." So he left them in the care of the king of Moab, and they stayed with him the whole time David was in the stronghold. Then the prophet Gad said to David, "Don't stay in the stronghold. Leave and return to the land of Judah." So David left and went to the forest of Hereth. Saul heard that David and his men had been discovered. At that time, Saul was in Gibeah, sitting under the tamarisk tree at the high place. His spear was in his hand, and all his servants were standing around him. And Saul said to his servants, "Listen, men of Benjamin, is Jesse going to give you fields and vineyards? Do you think he'll make all of you his commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? That's why all of you have conspired against me. Nobody tells me when my own son makes a covenant with Jesse's son. None of you cares about me or tells me that my son has stirred up my own servant to wait in ambush for me, as is the case today. Because again, he thinks that David is waiting for him to fall so he can attack him. Then Doeg the Edomite, who was in charge of Saul's servants, answered, I saw Jesse's son come to Ahimelech, son of Ahitub at Nob. Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for him and gave him provisions. He also gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. The king sent messengers to summon the priest Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, and his father's whole family, who were all priests in Nob, and all of them came to the king. They thought, cool, the king's asking for us to come. Then Saul said, listen, son of Ahitub. I'm at your service, my lord, he said. So Saul asked him, why did you and Jesse's son conspire against me? You gave him bread and a sword and inquired of God for him, so he could rise up against me and wait in ambush, as is the case today. Again, he doesn't know this. He's assuming it's the case. Well, Ahimelech replied to the king, who among all your servants is as faithful as David? He's the king's son-in-law, captain of your bodyguard, and honored in your house. Was today the first time I inquired of God for him? Of course not. Please don't let the king make an accusation against your servant or any of my father's family, for your servant didn't have any idea about all of this. But the king said, you will die, Ahimelech, you and your father's whole family. Then the king ordered the guards standing by him, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because they sided with David. For they knew he was fleeing, but they didn't tell me. But the king's servants would not lift a hand to execute the priests of God, the priests of the Lord. So the king said to Doeg the Edomite, he's not a Jew, it doesn't matter to him, go and execute the priests. So Doeg the Edomite went and executed the priests himself. On that day he killed 85 men who wore the linen ephod. He also struck down Nob, the city of the priests, with the sword, both men and women, infants and nursing babies, oxen, donkeys, and sheep. However, one of the sons of Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, escaped. His name was Abiathar, and he fled to David. Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priests of the Lord. Then David said to Abiathar, I knew that Doeg the Edomite was there that day, and that he was sure to report to Saul. I myself am responsible for the lives of everyone in your father's family. Stay with me. Don't be afraid, for the one who wants to take my life wants to take your life. You will be safe with me. Again, he feels responsible for what happened, which he kind of is, but certainly not to this level. I don't think he would have thought that Saul would try to kill off the priests. Certainly not. All right, let's go ahead and move on to 1 Corinthians chapter 3 now. Paul continues, for my part, brothers and sisters, I was not able to speak to you as spiritual people, but as people of the flesh, as babies in Christ. I gave you milk to drink and not solid food, since you were not ready for it. In fact, you are still not ready, because you are still worldly. For since there is envy and strife among you, are you not worldly and behaving like mere humans? For whenever someone says, I belong to Paul, and another, I belong to Apollos, are you not acting like mere humans? What then is Apollos, and what is Paul? They are servants through whom you believed. And each has the role that the Lord has given. I planted, and Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So then, neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. Now, he who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his own reward according to his own labor. For we are God's co-workers, and you're God's field, God's building. According to God's grace that was given to me, I have laid a foundation as a skilled master builder, and another builds on it. But each one is to be careful how he builds on it. For no one can lay a foundation other than what has been laid down, and that foundation is Jesus Christ. If anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, costly stones, or wood, hay, or straw, each one's work will become obvious. For the day, again, the day or that day, this is the day of Christ's return, will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire, as in testing by fire. The fire will test the quality of each one's work. If anyone's work that he has built survives, well, he will receive a reward. And if anyone's work is burned up, well, he will experience loss, but he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. Don't you yourselves know that you are God's temple, and that the Spirit of God lives in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him, for God's temple is holy, and that is what you are. Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you thinks he is wise in this age, again, worldly wisdom, that kind of thing, let him become a fool so that he can become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness or stupidity with God, since it is written, he catches the wise, earthly wisdom, that kind of thing, in their craftiness. And again, the Lord knows that the reasonings of the wise are futile. So let no one boast in human leaders, for everything is yours. Whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, who's Peter, or the world or life or death or things present or things to come, everything is yours. And you belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. Let's move on now to Ezekiel chapter 1. And now we're in a new book. Let's go ahead and read the introduction. Ezekiel, a prophet and priest, was exiled to Babylon in 597 BC. His ministry extended over at least 23 years. The book opens with his first dramatic vision of the, quote, likeness, unquote, of the Lord himself. Ezekiel was keenly aware of God's presence and power in human affairs. He addressed both the exiles and the people left in Judah with messages of warning and judgment, predicting the fall of Jerusalem. After Jerusalem's fall in 586, Ezekiel prophesied hope and reassurance for the people of Judah, who had then lost the focus of God's covenant, the temple in Jerusalem. His vision of the Valley of Dry Bones in chapter 37 is a classic picture of God's ability to renew his people. Let's begin. In the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, while I was among the exiles by the Kibar Canal, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's exile, the word of the Lord came directly to the priest Ezekiel, son of Buzi, and the land of the Chaldeans by the Kibar Canal. The Lord's hand was on him there. I looked, and there was a whirlwind coming from the north, a huge cloud with fire flashing back and forth, and brilliant light all around it. In the center of the fire, there was a gleam like amber. The likeness of 4 living creatures came from it, and this was their appearance. They looked something like a human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the hooves of a calf, sparkling like the gleam of polished bronze. They had human hands under their wings on their 4 sides. All of them had faces and wings. Their wings were touching. The creatures did not turn as they moved. Each one went straight ahead. Their faces looked something like the face of a human, and each of the 4 had the face of a lion on the right, the face of an ox on the left, and the face of an eagle. This is what their faces looked like. Their wings were spread upward, Each had two wings touching that of another, and, two wings covering its body. Each creature went straight ahead. Wherever the spirit wanted to go, there they went, without turning as they moved. The likeness of the living creatures was like the appearance of blazing coals of fire, or like torches. Fire was moving back and forth between the living creatures. It was bright, with lightning coming out of it. The creatures were darting back and forth like flashes of lightning. Then I looked at the living creatures, and there was one wheel on the ground beside each of the four-faced creatures. The appearance of the wheels and their craftsmanship was like the gleam of beryl, and all four had the same likeness. Their appearance and craftsmanship was like a wheel within a wheel. When they moved, they went in any of the four directions without turning as they moved. Their four rims were tall and awe-inspiring, completely covered with eyes all around. When the living creatures moved, the wheels moved beside them. And when the creatures rose up from the earth, the wheels also rose. Wherever the spirit wanted to go, the creatures went in the direction the spirit was moving. The wheels rose alongside them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When the creatures moved, the wheels moved. When the creatures stopped, the wheels stopped. And when the creatures rose from the earth, the wheels rose alongside them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Over the heads of the living creatures, the likeness of an expanse was spread out. It gleamed like an awe-inspiring crystal. And under the expanse, their wings extended toward one another. They each also had two wings covering their bodies. When they moved, I heard the sound of their wings like the roar of a huge torrent, like the voice of the Almighty, and a sound of tumult like the noise of an army. When they stopped, they lowered their wings. A voice came from above the expanse over their heads. When they stopped, they lowered their wings. Something like a throne with the appearance of lapis lazuli was above the expanse over their heads. On the throne, high above, was someone who looked like a human. From what seemed to be his waist up, I saw a gleam like amber, with what looked like fire enclosing all around. From what it seemed to be his waist down, I also saw what looked like fire, and there was brilliant light all around him. The appearance of the brilliant light all around was like that of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. This was the appearance of the likeness of the Lord's glory. When I saw it, I fell face down and heard a voice speaking. I'm going to pull up the rest of the notes here for you. All right, let's move on to Psalm 37 now. Do not be agitated by evildoers. Do not envy those who do wrong, for they wither quickly like grass, and they wilt like tender green plants. Trust in the Lord and do what is good. Dwell in the land and live securely. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act, making your righteousness shine like the dawn, your justice like the noonday. Be silent before the Lord, and wait expectantly for him. Do not be agitated by one who prospers in his way, by the person who carries out his evil plans. Refrain from anger and give up your rage. Do not be agitated. It can only bring harm. For evildoers will be destroyed, but those who put their hope in the Lord. Lost my spot. There we go. But those who put their hope in the Lord will inherit the land. Make sure we don't lose our spots here, or our notes on the side. There we go. A little while, and the wicked person will be no more. Though you look for him, he will not be there. But the humble will inherit the land. and will enjoy abundant prosperity. The wicked person schemes against the righteous and gnashes his teeth at them, and the Lord laughs at him because he sees that his day is coming. The wicked have drawn the sword and strung the bow to bring down the poor and needy, and to slaughter those whose way is upright. Their swords will enter their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. The little that the righteous person has is better than the abundance of many wicked people. For the arms of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord supports the righteous. The Lord watches over the blameless all their days, and their inheritance will last forever. They will not be disgraced in times of adversity. They will not be satisfied. Rather, they will be satisfied in days of hunger. But the wicked will perish. The Lord's enemies, like the glory of the pastures, will fade away. They will fade away like smoke. The wicked person borrows and does not repay, but the righteous one is gracious and giving. Those who are blessed by the Lord will inherit the land, but those cursed by him will be destroyed. A person's steps are established by the Lord, and he takes pleasure in his way. Though he falls, he will not be overwhelmed, because the Lord supports him with his hand. I have been young, and now am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous abandoned, or his children begging for bread. He is always generous, always lending, and his children are a blessing. Turn away from evil, do what is good, and settle permanently. For the Lord loves justice, and will not abandon his faithful ones. They are kept safe forever, but the children of the wicked will be destroyed. The righteous will inherit the land and dwell in it permanently. The mouth of the righteous utters wisdom. His tongue speaks what is just. The instruction of his God is in his heart, and his steps do not falter. The wicked one lies in wait for the righteous and intends to kill him. The Lord will not leave him in the power of the wicked one, or allow him to be condemned when he is judged. Wait for the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. You will watch when the wicked are destroyed. I have seen a wicked, violent person, well rooted like a flourishing native tree. Then I passed by and noticed he was gone. I searched for him, but he could not be found. Watch the blameless and observe the upright. For the person of peace will have a future, but transgressors will all be eliminated. The future of the wicked will be destroyed. The salvation of the righteous is from the Lord, their refuge in a time of distress. The Lord helps and delivers them. He will deliver them from the wicked and save them because they take refuge in him. And that is all of the notes for today. So God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold the word of the Lord.